Welcome, everybody, to today's Building My Legacy podcast. I have with me today Karen Calder. She is fascinating because she has held the vice president position in Fortune 1 companies and has looked at the training that is needed, worked on change development, various things that go on in large organizations to bring people together to make them really work effectively. And she has wonderful insights in terms of what is it that goes on, what allows us to become resilient, and how do we live and thrive in this environment that we're creating in the workplace. So with that, Karen, I'll let you fill in the gaps of what I didn't talk about, and then let's talk a little bit about your work.
Awesome. Thank you, Lois, very much. Lois, you're right. I had a 30-year career. My last role was the VP in a large Fortune 1 company, heading up training and development, leadership, and change. And it was through that experience that I realized I was allowing my mind to sort of run the show and eventually run me into hitting a brick wall. So I got burnt out and made a courageous decision for myself. My health was worth more than giving 110% to an organization that wasn't meeting me kind of halfway. So I chose to leave, and I started my own consulting, coaching, and leadership development practice. And before I did that, though, I had to rebuild my mindset. I had a mindset that, I felt like I was an imposter, I wasn't good enough, couldn't do things well enough, that perfectionistic, people pleasing, sort of a very negative mindset. People told me I was really hard on myself, and I was. So my internal dialogue was never enough, whatever I was looking at
So
life through.
Karen, can I just interrupt you there for a moment?
Sure.
Do you think that that negative mindset of yourself was because you're in a large corporation, results are everything, you're always being pushed to do more? Do you think that's part of what you then uh, took in, internalized, and took up as part of your own?
I think there's two things. I think growing up, I was taught that in my family. You always had to achieve best marks. My father was a perfectionist, and so I definitely adopted that pattern of thinking because, and it runs in the subconscious mind throughout the day. And then I think that was exasperated inside a large corporation where results were everything, and there was always somebody nipping at your heels that was wanting your job or criticizing you. And so it for me it was just like gasoline on a on a fire, um, in terms of how I felt about myself and my mental strength and resilience. So I left. I left. I didn't think that I fit in. I knew that this was not the legacy I wanted to leave, and I hired a high performance coach who really taught me about success from the inside out, about what you tell yourself matters, how you relate to yourself, your beliefs about yourself, your beliefs about the world matter in terms of outcome, because what you think is how you feel, is how you show up energetically, right? Whether you can or can't has a different energy feel to it. And then you get the outcome, right? So if you're not happy with your outcome, work backwards from that. Work backwards from outcome, energetic feel, emotions, and your thoughts. And therein lies the secret to success, I believe.
Wow,
And
I think that is powerful because we don't often work backwards.
we don't teach this. So if I am now on a mission in life to empower women and to empower anybody who wants a higher level of performance by understanding these key principles of how the brain works.
So here's something else that I find fascinating. You were feeling burnt out. You were feeling like there were the pressure of people right at your heels pushing you to do more, and so you were feeling in a sense less than. You were not sure in terms of who you were in terms of your own personal strength, right? And yet you were strong enough in that environment to wake up one day and say enough and to move on. That's a lot of strength. How did you do that?
Oh, to this day, Lois, I wonder how I did. But looking back, here's was the pivotal moment for me. I had this intuition, this inner knowingness one day as I was sitting in my office and I'm crying and going, I can't be myself in this environment. I'm turning myself into pretzel to get the results by being somebody different. This does not feel good. And I had this overwhelming thinking come over me that says, if I continue down this road, I'm going to face some very difficult health challenges. This is just not healthy, one. And two, I went, this was the definition of success that was sold to me, right? High performing job, top tiered organization, paycheck, right? That's the definition, culturally of success.
Right.
I asked myself the question, how come I don't feel successful inside?
Huh.
To me, if I didn't feel successful, I couldn't be successful. And so I stopped. I just went, I can't buy into that. And then a friend of mine asked me this this simple question, Karen, what brings you joy? And I broke into tears and I went, nothing. Is this how I want to live the rest of my life? No. And from that
Wow.
moment on, I went, my definition of success is the degree to which I experience freedom and joy and health.
Wow. Wow. So in that process, I mean, that's a huge shift of identity.
Huge.
And so you had a coach that helped you get there, right? But you also had to let go. You had to let go a lot of belief systems.
Yeah.
And
I would say that this was not one and done thing. This is a 5-year journey that I went on. You're quite right. I had to go on a journey of I traveled. I saw my father through a difficult health experience. I had to get into the mental gym every single day and wrestle with what are those thoughts, those automatic thoughts that I'm not even aware of, that are in my subconscious mind that are running my life. I have to get off autopilot and listen to gurus out there talking about how your mind works, the neuroscience of it, NLP, all of those kinds of things. And I peeled back layers and layers and layers of the onion. And Lois, I'm still doing it today.
you know what? I think people that I know who are those beautiful people who kind of are always giving and have that wisdom about them because they've lived life, I think they also are still peeling back the onion. I don't think until we breathe our last breath are we done with that process. It's just when you peel back, what do you see more of things you like and movement in a direction you want rather than so much of the onion that you have to cut out because it's really too damaged.
Agreed. Agreed. Lois, one question I asked myself recently, I was in meditation. I do meditation. I'm pretty mindful. I'm not perfect. Like I don't sit there for hours. I just want your viewers to know, like 5 or 10, 15 minutes every day, and just connecting to your higher self, um, and listening to what it says is, you know, that's just pure truth to me. Um, about my experience. And when I asked my higher self around what, and I don't mean this esoterically, it's actually true. Like we do have a higher consciousness that's constantly in communication with ourselves. We're not accessing it. That's the difference. And I said, what is the one thing that is getting in the way of us not being able to peel back all of the layers of
Um,
the onion, right? Like, what is that one thing? And it keeps coming back to fear. It's our fear of being our true potential, our fear of fully loving ourselves, the fear of living our magnificent life, Um, it's, the fear, yeah, just a fear of what ifs, the fear of the unknown. I hear that a lot from my clients.
Wow. So for you to deal with fear, how do you do that? What kind of do you have a process you work through? How do you approach that?
I have a little process called my Resilient Mind Toolkit, and it starts with recognition. So the first place is that you have to be aware of your thoughts. So what is that fear, and name it, right? What is the situation that triggers the fear, and how does it make you feel,
Got
right?
it.
Right. And so I notice fear when I'm not at my best, when I'm feeling what I call the lower floor of my mood elevator, below the line thoughts, or sorry, the below the line feeling like I'm not at my best. I'm feeling crappy or frustrated or angry or anxious. I feel anxious a lot. So that one is and so then I ask myself what's going on and what must I believe to be true to feeling this way. And then once I can surface all of it, right? And I can see it because it's all going on in my head. I can't, this is all kind of in their brain. And once I surface it and write it out, I can go, oh, I can do the second thing, which is reframe. So if my thoughts are not fact, and none of these are, and I have infinite choices over my thinking, what thoughts do I want to choose in this moment? And so I ask myself, what is a different outcome I want? So I want to feel joy. I want to feel that faith can get me through this. Then if I want that as an outcome, what must I think? What's the more empowering beliefs that I need to adopt in this moment to help me through that? Well, I am good enough. I have lived through enough fears and unknown. I'm strong. I'm courageous. I can do this, right? It's time to reinvent myself. It's time to step out and try something new and different. And to know that there are no such thing as mistakes. To really
Oh,
believe that. There's no mistakes. There's just learning. There's That's part of becoming part of your journey, right? Let go of perfection, control. And one thing I really have control over is what's in here. That's it. And to try my best and to be my best every single day. And so from that, when I'm able to kind of shift that thinking, I shift my energy into a more resourceful state, which means I have more access to information. And I start asking my question, well, what's possible? What The third thing is, how do I reimagine this moment, reimagine my outcome? And I did that this year going through cancer and COVID and a financial crisis, really. I used that tool to help me through that experience.
wow. Wow. Okay. So most people had huge trouble just making it through COVID and going through three things simultaneously. That would be huge. So, how was it that those things enabled you to reframe and reimagine what it was? Because I think, those things are real. The fact that you're getting treatment for cancer, that's real.
Mhm.
The financial stress, that's real, right? So it's not that you can imagine it away. So how did you do that? It is fascinating.
So I decided, so it's a choice.
Okay.
And I was very real about going through chemo treatment this year. So in January, I started radiation, a combo radiation and chemo. I finished that at the end of February, and then I started 4 IV sessions of chemo and ended at the beginning of May. So I've been 7 months since my last treatment. I'm also the only breadwinner in my family, and I don't have a full time job. I don't have a paycheck coming in per se, right? So so how I make my money was up to, you know, how was I going to support myself through this? There was no adult, no parent. My parents have both passed away. There was nobody coming to save me.
Rescue you. Yeah.
No rescuing, right? And so I just decided in that moment that I was not going to go back to how I was feeling when I left corporate, which was I felt like I was succumbing versus surmounting. And that was the question that I asked myself one morning. Do you want to surmount or do you want to succumb? And I went, I want to surmount this. I want this to be my resilience story. I want this to be a real live example of all of the things that I have learned about the power of our mind, and to put it into practice. And so there were days though that I could not. I just want people to know that it was very real. I was very sick some mornings. A week after chemo, I literally could not get off the couch. I had no energy. I had brain fog. I had all of those things. But every day I asked myself, well, what can I do today? Okay, what can I do? What's possible? And sometimes it was like nothing. You need to sleep. Got it. But the days, a week after, and there was 2 weeks kind of in between the chemo treatment, that I was like, I'm feeling pretty good today. I could work out. I can give gratitude. And so every morning when my feet hit the ground, I opened up my journal and I just wrote just steady streams of consciousness of everything that I was grateful for. And I was going to go through the rest of my day with a super grateful heart. I believe gratitude is one of the most powerful healing tools that we have, because once you're in the state of gratitude, you can't be in any other state. And then from the state of gratitude and feeling better, I went, what's possible in this situation? And I said, I'm going to come up with a resilience tool. And I came up with my 5 R's of resilience. And I had one client that continued to work with me for a day or two a week, and they were very understanding. um, and I did that kind of, had a few coaching clients, one consulting client that helped kind of ease me through the financial aspect of it. And when I came out on the other end, sort of in June and July, I started talking to people about the resilience tool. I've now taught that course, the 90-minute kind of quick course, about 50 times. And
Wow.
so it's generating income for me. And more importantly, it's a tool that really is helping others through this very difficult time once they hear kind of my story and how this tool came about and how to put it into practice. Once you start putting it into practice, you see it. You can see the different outcome. You can experience how differently you feel, despite the fact that we're in these really difficult financial times. We're in this difficult moment in history, the global pandemic, all of those things. It's just a choice. How do you want to go through it?
Wow. You know, Karen, that is the struggle. What you did was you were consciously choosing every day. It wasn't you chose once and then wanted it to pull you along. You chose every day. And I think that's where we struggle because we want this magic to happen, make a choice, the magic happens, and we move on. And it doesn't work so simply, does it?
Lois, thank you for. I got to remember that to say that in the future. It is, you got to play the long game. I just kept saying this moment in time, this 1 year is temporary. I'm going to play 5 years out. And every day I'm just going to show up winning the battles. I don't
Wow.
let up, Lois. I don't let up. Every day I'm in constantly becoming very aware and recognizing my thoughts and reframing. And it is just a habit that I will have for the rest of my life.
What a gift that you have to share. Now, what I'm curious about is you continue to work with Fortune 1 companies, very large companies that are not so in tune to feelings and this kind of the thought process. They would like people to be resilient, but the process of getting resilience is not necessarily a value. So, how do you help large companies understand their need for this?
Yeah, so I work with large and mid-sized organizations, and it's the people. So
Okay.
it's not, you don't change an organization, you change people. And once you share the story, and once I walk them through the tool and leave them with the handout, and they all are like, wow, I've talked about resilience, but nobody's made it practical, like a practical step that I could work my way through. Not everybody buys in. I'm gonna share with you. Not everybody will buy into this tool and this way of being. But for those that do, absolutely within a couple of weeks will write me and tell me, in fact, even in 24 hours afterwards, and reframing things in their life, it makes a big difference on their relationships and the impact that they're having on their work and themselves, right?
So here's, I think, what's so important, Karen, is there probably isn't a person who's listening to this that isn't thinking about what's next in my life. It may be another job. It may be, how do I have more influence? How do I have impact in my community? Or it may be I'm getting ready for retirement and what will my legacy be at that time? So there isn't a person who I think doesn't have these thoughts about how do I prepare for what's next? And part of that what's next story is resilience, isn't it?
It is. It's stepping out of your comfort zone and to make friends with the unknown. To know that your whole life has been going through the unknown. There's never been any certainty in our life, but we all want certainty, right? Like I knew that I was an entrepreneur and I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but my father said he was an entrepreneur. He said, go get educated, get a job and have a steady paycheck because being an entrepreneur was not too unpredictable. Yeah,
It
that was
is
who I am.
unpredictable. Yeah,
It is.
it is
It is.
unpredictable. Yeah.
It's not for the faint of heart. You have to have real faith in yourself and in what you're doing, and that things will work out for you. And so I've learned that the unknown is just there. It is something that since the day I was born, I never knew what tomorrow was going to be. I don't worry about tomorrow. I don't base my decisions on the past. I live very much in today. In the present moment, I have this time. What am I going to do with it?
What
Right.
am I going to do with it? That's a challenge all of us have because if you don't ask yourself that question, you simply go through the day, which is what you were doing in corporate life. You were going through the day, but you weren't orchestrating how that was going to be for you as a person, a human being.
Yeah, I felt like a salmon swimming upstream. Very, very difficult every single day, right? I can't get that time back either, Lois, right? And so, you know, I would say to anybody that's sort of feeling like they're caught up in the tide of to really sit down and say, what do they want? Why do they exist? And believe that they can create it.
When
Even
I
within corporate, you can create it. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
and so okay, I have several questions with that. How do you create it in the corporate world?
I think, you know, it's mindset.
Okay,
It truly is. And so whether you think you can or you can't, you're right.
got it.
And I have seen people be very successful in in the corporate worlds. A lot of them, at least the ones that I came through, were very profit driven, right? And I think I let my mindset go to, well, I have to work harder and faster and better than anybody else, but that drove me into burnout. I think the mindset needs to be, I'm going to be clear on my boundaries. I'm going to give, my best during these set of hours, however you like to work. Some people like to work 4 hours, 1 hour off, 4 hours more, however that looks. And that is it. The rest of the time I'm taking care of myself. And I believe, so this is what I tell myself, I believe that I can achieve everything they're asking me to achieve, okay, within that time frame. I'm going to be laser focused. I'm going to give it my best. I'm going to show up as, my best self, my best energetic self. I'm going to feel good. Truly, if that's not good enough, Lois, then I think you got a question for yourself. Is this the right organization?
It's interesting because coming down the road during COVID, I had so much fun interviewing people. And one of the questions I used to ask M&A people was, what do you see happening next in corporations? And one of the things that I was hearing was, once we get through all the stimulus checks and help economically, you're going to have to figure out how to make it on your own as a company. And the companies that are going to do well are the ones that can leverage their employees to make relationships, collaborative relationships with their line in other companies so that you can pool knowledge and various kinds of resources. And I thought, how interesting, because that shifts, in a sense, the pyramid of the organization. And it makes various levels important for different reasons, but you have to be connected in a very different way.
Yeah. I think there's more power in us collaborating and being creative than there is in competing. And I want to work with organizations who understand that and realize that the way to win is not to compete internally,
Yes,
but to, collaborate to compete externally. And in collaboration, you create creativity, new ideas. You give people the energy and the empowerment to be productive and engaged. And we've got it wrong. We try to constrict the energy in our workplace, and it's like holding sand in the hand, and we squeeze the sand out of everybody, right? And therefore we're squeezing the life force out of our companies, and therefore we get the result that we get. You may hit the bottom line and you may please the shareholder in the short term. I guarantee that is not a long-term effective strategy. You'll burn everybody out, right? And you won't get the productivity. So is there so much an easier way, but for some reason I don't understand why more people don't just hold the sand in your hand, allow people to be themselves, and to come to work, and collaborate with one another and be creative. And I mean, set the parameters for sure for them. This is who we are as an organization, and this is what we want to achieve. And just breathe some life into the beautiful organization and people. And I think the organizations that understand that will emerge
strong.
strong and successful, have a long-term viable organization with great
Yeah,
people that work in it.
with great people. Our time is almost up, Karen. So thoughts, things that we have glossed over, things that we have missed that you would like to have covered. Your last thoughts for our audience.
I think my last thought, we covered a lot. I think I really want people to leave with an understanding that they are powerful. They are powerful creators in their life, and that their current situation is temporary,
Mm,
and their roadblock may not be the situation, but it may be their orientation, their perspective, their thoughts, their beliefs, their mindset about the situation. And with some simple shifts in that thinking, they can create the life of their dreams.
wow. So, with some simple shifts in your mind, you can control or you can create the life that you want to create. It's beautiful. Karen, thank you so much for being with us and sharing your story. What a precious story. And it's a story of hope, because we have so many people that have been in your shoes, but they haven't had that maybe that ability. They haven't given themselves permission, perhaps, to ask the questions that you asked that took you down a new path. And so I just thank you for that, because hopefully this will just wake some people up, allow them to say, okay, I'm ready for looking at what could give me more joy, more happiness in my life. And for those of you who are listening, who are in positions where you really do set the pace and the thoughts of what goes on in your organization, perhaps this will give you some added insight into how you can think about your human resources and how to really build them for creativity and to strengthen the company. And I really believe that when we do that, it also makes the organization more profitable. So those of you who are listening, we will have information about Karen in our show notes, so you can contact her if you would like to do so. And please remember to visit us at our website, buildtomorrow.com, and our social media sites, buildtomorrow.com. Thanks very much for being with us today on Building My Legacy podcast.
Thank you, Lois, very much for the time and gratitude. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you for watching my video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell button above. Leave comments. We'd love to hear what you think. And visit our other social media links as well. Thanks much.